Welcome to 54015, a place to talk about tech news in the federal government. On this week's broadcast, John O'Brien and Patrick Nolan.
Come to decide that the things that I tried were in my life just to get high.
You ready, Patrick?
I'm not ready, but we're gonna be ready.
All right, cool. Good morning, everyone out there. 540 Co here, doing our 54015 again this Wednesday. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at 540 Co. John O'Brien, follow me on Twitter at JO'Brien_III. Patrick?
Yeah, Patrick Nolan. You can follow me at Patrick Nolan with 1K.
Perfect. So for those of you who listening to this for the first time or catching on the YouTube, usually talk about tech, things going on in the DC marketplace, government procurement, things like that. Last week we had kind of a special edition. We were talking about the 18F Agile Development BPA that was basically still going through the procurement. We're still working on. So I missed last week though, unfortunately, and so I just got a chance to look at all the video. So
did you actually watch it live or no?
No, I did, and yeah, the product owner had to go on vacation during that time. So
it was pretty funny.
Yeah, and I watched it this morning, right? So I got a chance to go through the YouTube, and I was sad that I didn't get a chance to participate in all those great questions and answers. But the BPA is still open right now, right? We're still, 18F is kind of pushed it out one more week, I think. Is that right? Is it one more week? Yeah, so I guess that means we're still hacking on it a little bit, right?
I guess. I mean, we're done, right?
We're close. Actually, with that said, I'm going to be a little incoherent this morning after spending an all-nighter on finishing up some of the Swagger docs. But before we get started on talking about 18F, because I think I'm going to go on a kind of a big, long, maybe soapbox on some of the things on that. You got something you want to talk about this morning, Patrick, in the news?
Well, so kind of related to 18F and the whole APIs and the government thing going on. I don't know if it's recently new, but there's been some talk about a new feature on data.gov where you can actually request a data set and they'll help facilitate getting it up online. And I think that's pretty cool just in general. Shows the kind of movement around building up APIs, and you might not have an API, but people might want your data, and this is an interesting way to find out new data sources, what people want, and try to tailor data to people across the government.
You get a sense that the government folks, different government folks, are then taking those demand signals, those requests, and then facilitating who in different agencies would be the ones responsible for providing that data. Is that what it looks like?
Yeah, I think so. Or even maybe leave it up to the community. I think it probably trickles into just GitHub issues, and if somebody knows where the data is, or wants to help out with collecting or aggregating, orchestrating all the information, then they can do it themselves.
Like we kind of do on Fed API sometimes too, right?
Right.
Or pulling some of that data together on behalf of some of our customers, right? Some of our clients.
Yeah, but I think it's an interesting point that can be applied across all APIs. Right. You think you know what your customers want, but there might be new things that they request. So I think that's an awesome feature for any API, is to open it up to the community and allow them to request new data sets, or maybe a new field or something like that. Sure. Depending on their project or their new app that they're building, it might be super useful to them.
Yeah, that brings up a point. I remember talking to some folks at the Sunlight Foundation about, a lot of times we're talking about APIs, we're talking about getting the data on the APIs, and they always kind of push back and just said, yep, APIs are great. We would love the APIs too. They're hackers. They want to grab the data that way. But first off, let's just get the data released, right? Get that data set in a way that we can, of course not PDFs or something, but something that's machine readable. And then we can start working with the data. And even before it ever ends up maybe on an API or something like that, at least we can start learning from the data, maybe even learning where we have good data, bad data, missing data, quality issues, and things like that. And I think, that probably is where some of those types of activities would start.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I kind of struggle with personally. When you're trying to develop like a small public API, I kind of think about it. Do you just put the data out there in a CSV first, or do you actually try to get like a MVP API that's available? It's so easy to put just a CSV out there of your data. But is that useful? I'm not sure. Do people want an API, or do they want a CSV? I guess it depends.
I think it depends on the type of consumer, and maybe both is sometimes the right answer if you can get there fast. And there's so many tools now that almost you can take that CSV and almost wrap it with an API almost for a very simple, lightweight API, of course.
Yeah, that's actually one thing that I've been tracking a lot. Is there are a bunch of new startup companies that are basically upload a CSV, output an API. Right. And we've seen that a little bit with there's a couple of big players that do that. I think like the Apogees and the different larger API companies.
Well, yeah, like the Socratas of the world, the
yeah.
Drupal module that I always forget the name of, that I think data.gov is actually running on now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think getting that data out there is the key. That actually reminds me, I'm going to go through some of the 18F Agile BPA discussion, kind of rewinding a little bit to last week since it's still going on. But one of the questions kind of brought that up, like one of the questions to the government was something around, well, what if the API doesn't have the data that I want? Kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if I want to call the open FDA data and ask a certain question of it and it's not there, what am I supposed to do? Well, that's the point. The APIs aren't always going to be perfect out of the chute. How do you make sure you got to make sure you got to have it out there so people can even learn that in the first thing.
Right.
And then have a nice feedback loop that makes it better.
Yeah, I mean we ran into that situation on our project, right? We wanted definition of medical terms and wasn't there, so what do?
Figure out other ways.
Yeah. Yep,
We got to showcase some API building too.
Yeah.
So let's actually go back to the 18F thing. So last week, like you guys, if we go back to the video from last week, everybody kind of talked about some of the roles they played on the project. Technical architect, I was the product owner, I also did a little bit of the back-end development, folks were doing the front-end work and things like that. And kind of rewinding back, like we'd been waiting for that 18F Agile BPA for quite some time. I mean,
right.
We knew it was going to destroy somebody's vacation or somebody's birthday party, and it helped destroy part of my vacation. Thank you, 18F. And definitely has taken away a lot of sleep. But it was very refreshing to see how it came out. It reminds me, a couple months ago I was at a conference speaking. I was with a CIO from the Army, and vendors were asking some questions around procurements or around proposal writing and doing things like that. And they were technology companies, and I remember at one point, I don't exactly know how the question came up, but I made a comment like, just do something, like build something, don't wait to be always told what to do. Do something that can show the government what you're doing. And I think that's what, kind of going over to this BPA and the approach that the governments went out for the procurement, that's what they want us to do. They want us to do something.
Right.
They want us to show something. And that's so refreshing, right? Because so many times I think we waste so much time doing like things on just writing papers, Word documents and things like that. And it doesn't really showcase anything. So, and I know I just finally made it not safe for work, the 54015. So I apologize, everyone. We'll have to post-production that. But I mean, this was great, right? I mean, this was an opportunity for all vendors, and I know there's a lot of people out there participating in this BPA right now,
yeah.
and they're doing something, and I think it's just so great to see, and I'm hoping that we're going to get to do this more and more.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I truly believe that is actually going to improve a lot. With that said, actually, I think there's a couple things I want to talk about, but I'm just happy we're doing it that way. We still got a little bit of work to do. I know we're trying to clean up a few things. We got back to them with the questions and answers, which some of them were pretty funny. Some of the questions people asked.
Let's not talk about that here.
Not allowed to talk about that here?
No,
I actually have things highlighted here.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do it then.
Maybe we'll put those on anonymous Twitter account like we talked about.
Let's do it.
No, I don't have. I mean, I will say. I mean, there were some questions that it was pretty. I was shocked that some people were asking some of the fundamental questions like, what does it mean to remix a data set, or identify, what is the challenge even, or
yeah.
I just, I'm trying to be flippant, but okay, don't participate.
Right.
I mean,
I agree.
I was kind of just shocked that some people were asking those questions. I'm not sure if it was just, to give big data questions back to the government or what, but and then I know there's a lot of other companies out there. You can look at the GitHub repos right now, and you can see some of them really, there's some stuff going on. There's some real heavy commits, lots of issues. You see a lot going through the GitHub process. And actually, I don't know if I sent this out on Slack this morning, but I found Linux Bozo, his name's Adam, I think, but he's following us on our Slack channel that we've been doing as we've been hacking. He works for another company, obviously I think a competitor, but he put together a nice little application that actually is tracking all the repos.
Nice.
And so we'll put it in the show notes. I don't. It's on Heroku, but it basically is kind of nice because it shows he basically, I think, did some search terms against the GitHub API, pulled up all the repos that that basically seem to be in relation to something with the OpenFDA or 18F or something, and you can kind of start going through the little app and start seeing, okay, who's got forks, who's got stars, who's got issues, who's got number of commits.
Nice.
What is a sense of the competition?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've poked around on repos on GitHub,
right?
And I've been impressed by some and not impressed by others. It really depends. There's a good mix there.
There absolutely is.
I think the questions demonstrate that as well, right? There are some questions that are like, what the heck is this? Why is this question being asked? And there are some good questions as well.
No, there really was.
Yeah, there was a mix there, I think.
You should take I know I was poking around the repos, and after seeing his app that pulled together a little bit more data, I found a couple other repos. There's another one out there that's actually very similar to what we built, actually.
Yeah.
So, but to be expected, limited data set. You're gonna have some things that cross over. But so let's get that out there so people can track that. I think it's pretty cool.
So that wasn't their app. That was just a fun little thing that they put up.
Yeah, no, that wasn't their app.
Nice.
He was doing it, I think, as tracking it, keeping an eye on what's going on with the competition, like we were kind of doing, maybe more in an ad hoc way.
Yeah.
I figured somebody would build that app, but he actually did it, and it's pretty clean.
That's cool. They released it to the public too. I mean, that's what the whole I think the whole BPA is about. Open, doing things in the open, participating in this community, and driving towards goal, just doing something awesome.
Right. No, and I one of my key words I had written down actually was around you use the word open. Using the open source technologies, right? So we use some open source tool. I mean, obviously the whole BPA was focused on us using open source tools to deliver things that ultimately would be free of charge to the government, or lesser of a charge in a support model. And I was in some discussions even yesterday around open source technologies and how important the open source community is to software development right now. I mean, we all know this in the software world, but the government is kind of waking up to this. The 18F guys, obviously, gals know this already. That you can look at the community that rallies around that. That adoption drives better software, etc. And I know we got to get some of our DoD brethren doing this as well a little bit more, embracing some of those things as well. I always know there's always IA challenges there as well, but this continued movement to using open source technology, allowing us to adopt it, use it, and then contribute back. Is so important. I think that, like Chris mentioned last week on his interview, how important this BPA is to the government, and I think it's absolutely right. This is something that'll really push that forward, that agenda forward on using open source, contributing to open source. And all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, I should have brought it up today. I didn't even think about it. There was even an article yesterday put out by the Huffington Post. I don't remember the gentleman's name, the author, but around Congress is now, and I didn't get a chance to read the article in its entirety, but it was something around they're promoting the use of open source as well, and even the fact that as they're developing things in Congress, that there would be that it's promoted to contribute back to the open source tools and things like that as part of a normal course of doing business. So
nice.
We're at the point now where I think we're starting to really tip.
Yeah, absolutely. I know maybe it was a couple months ago, 18F was super excited that somebody forked and made their own app for their analytics.gov. I think it was like a local or state government. They completely just copy and pasted the code, plugged it up to their stuff, and then they were done. Awesome demonstration of how open source works in the government.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should do that for one of our DoD customers. Just for just to do it, right?
Just to do it.
Yeah. It'd be fun.
I think that's the key. What else did I want to talk? Anything else you want to bring up around the 18F thing?
I could talk about it for days, right?
What was your biggest takeaway from it, do you think?
It was super refreshing, right? Because I've been doing consulting for the past maybe like 5 years for the government. And business development and the whole, and no offense to anyone, but the whole business development seems like a very lengthy, time-consuming process, right? Where writing research, and this was very cool to see, hands-on doing, building something, and really that's what you have to show. And I think for small tech companies that works, especially us, we're a small company, very tech-focused,
right?
It can be a burden to put in the time and effort to write a response to a proposal and stuff like that. Where this, I think we all had fun doing it.
Yeah, we wrote a lot of code though.
We did write a lot of code, but it's something that we got better at, building an app, right?
Yep.
We learn from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got to have
pushed
fun.
into some areas that we hadn't pushed into before.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I think it was 100% worth it for us. Where even if let's say if we don't win, we still built something awesome,
Right.
And we learned from it, which is cool.
Yep.
So yeah.
I was talking to one of my friends at the one of the larger integrators, and I was just saying, well, so what are all the contracts folks doing? What are all the legal folks doing right now? They weren't doing anything,
Yeah.
right? Because there was such a focus on the tech teams, and I was even talking to Chris Bach last night about how what happens if this becomes a norm, right? Are the proposal writers, maybe for technology stuff, all of a sudden technologists, right?
Absolutely.
Right, instead of proposal writers, right?
Yeah.
They're proposal. Now I just been told I went over time.
Well, that's
proposal coders, proposal hackers.
So that goes in with your theory of everyone should code, right?
I guess it should, yeah.
I mean, in the future, everyone will probably know how to code, at least a little bit, right? So that is, I think, the trend of the future of technology.
No, but Chris, we were riffing on this a little bit last night. What about even other things of doing, right? Financial management, contract management, things. Maybe not even something software. More demonstrating doing when we're actually putting proposals together. I think that's
interesting.
Awesome. It could change the whole game.
Topic of discussion for our next Meerkat, because Altman's yelling at us.
Yeah, because we're 60 seconds over time now. So, well, I guess we'll wrap it up. Thanks for everyone for joining and following us. And so follow us on 540 Co, Facebook, Twitter, the whole 9 yards. Post-production add all the nice splashes at the end. And I get a nod and just a sigh there. And we'll call it a day.
Yep.
Peace out, everyone.